Surplus store. Donk, ding, donk. My kinds of people. Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here, and it's time to do another Generation 1 Transformers review. Yesterday, in 1967, was the original manga release for the character Lupin the Third. Eventually became famous for his anime counterpart as well, as seen here in front of you. So to help honor the 50th anniversary of one of my favorite animated characters, when they say it takes a thief, we're going to review a thief. The 1985 Decepticon thief, Chop Shop. Chop Shop was first released in 1985. He would also be available in 1986. He would be discontinued in 1987, and we would not get a replacement for him. Chop Shop is one of the deluxe Insecticons that were also put out the same year as the regular Insecticons. But as he and his buddies Barrage, Venom, and Ransack were made by Bandai Toys instead of Takara, they were not allowed to be promoted in any sort of Transformer media. So those guys were kept out of the cartoon and the comic books, and are thus kind of like Roadbuster and Whirl of the Autobots, characters that existed but for most of the fandom are forgotten. And in some cases, I feel that's a shame. Chop Shop's unique function certainly would have led to some interesting adventures. And possibly some different uses, if the Decepticons would allow him to do more than just be a petty thief. Let's take a look at the toy a little bit closer now. As you can see, he is one ugly shade of brown and orange, so he definitely stands out among many of the other Transformers. But he also doesn't do a real good job of hiding a lot of the insect kibble, since as you can see, some of the legs are woefully exposed, as are the pinchers. But kind of makes him stand out a little bit, so I'm willing to forgive him on that. I mean, there are certainly ones that do a worse job of hiding it. But let's get down to some of the other nitty-gritty details about it, like his articulation, and here is where he really sucks on it. His arms can only be raised out to the side, just barely at a 45-degree angle, so that's his arm articulation. He can't even aim his gun properly unless he'd turn him to the side, but since the head doesn't rotate, not that he could see past these claws anyways, but that's about the only way you're going to have to do it. A lot of imagination is required to do that. Let's see. Does it look any better here with the other weapon? Nah, not really. Try it with both arms. Nah, just makes him look like he's waiting for his deodorant to dry. As for leg articulation, well, He can move his legs slightly forward at the hip. Can't go backward. But he does have a joint there at the knees. It's more used for transforming him, but gives something. And there is a joint at the ankle. So we can kind of make it look like he's trying to run a marathon and dry out his armpits at the same time. Yes, moving right along. Okay, folks, moving right along now. Let's transform Chop Chop, first by removing his weapons and getting them out of our way. Now, Chop Chop here is a bit more complicated than some, so please do bear with me while we work with him here. The first step that we're going to do is we need to gently push his fist inside his arm and then rotate the arm upward at the shoulder and put it inside here above the leg. You gotta push it in a little bit, make sure you feel it go in. Now, as you noticed when I do that, this part of his chest shifted up and covered part of his head. That's how it works. So do the same thing over here with the other arm. Shift it up, in, feel it go in, and there we have it. I mean, you'll notice to some degree that his fists do poke out a little bit here at the top of his leg. That is normal, so don't fret about it. Now down here, you're going to take his feet, pop them free for a moment, because first we got to reach behind him here. He's got little bug legs hiding back in here, just so you can see them here. You will basically fold them downward and rotate them out to the side. These are kind of loose on mine, so kind of expect them to fall back. Then you fully bring the feet down, flush against the legs, to be just like that. Then next you're going to rotate it at the knee and fold it upward. Now the foot here is going to rest right where the fist is coming out, so you got to push it in until it locks, and then fold this side panel here, fold it down to cover the leg. I'm going to show it to you again with the other leg. Get it down here out of the way, fold it over, keep the foot down, and when it doesn't go any further, you just fold the cover over. You can adjust the back legs out a little bit more. And then, there you have it. His alternate mode, a stag beetle. Pretty oversized stag beetle. But he doesn't look too bad as it. And thankfully what also helps is that he does have some joints here against the body for each of the legs. So the legs all can be moved out into various positions. So you can kind of get his legs going every which way you can, if you would like. So he does win back some articulation points on this mode. I mean, yeah, what little he has, especially in the arms of the robot mode, is kind of terrible, but he does make up for a little bit of it by at least being able to move some of his legs, since many of the regular Insecticons, their insect legs were pretty solid, so you couldn't do much with them. So I guess he deserves some points for that, but of course you also got to remember the regular Insecticons were originally intended to be powered mecha, whereas the deluxe ones like Chop Chop here are meant to be a robot insect. So there's a slight difference, but a little too complicated to explain. However, there is an interesting bit of trivia here that also plays well with his function and possibly go along well with the anniversary we're dealing with yesterday. In the Lupin feature, The Fuma Conspiracy, there is a wall safe puzzle. There's a sliding wall puzzle that our heroes are trying to solve, and Lupin uses a robotic stag beetle to secretly infiltrate and shift the panels around. Not only that, once it's done and gets the safe exposed, the stag beetle gets on top of the combination and rotates the dial to open the safe and steal the treasure. Now, one has to wonder if some of Hasbro's toy seekers, when they were looking for toy robots, happened to see this feature and be involved in the acquisition of this robot and decided to make him a thief in homage to that. There is, of course, no records to state that whether or not that is true, but it does make for an interesting theory to throw about. Now we'll take a look at Chop Shop's accessories, and despite being labeled a deluxe Insecticon, he only has two, and both of them are pretty small. We'll start with his handheld melee weapon, a Vibro Spear. As you can see, it's just basically an orange spear. Kind of looks more like an axe on this end, but I can see it being a spear as well. I mean, like I said, when it is rather small, I mean, right here, laying against my finger. So as you can imagine, this is one accessory that is very difficult to find loose on the market. So I definitely advise, try to get Chop Shop complete the first round. Don't try to hunt down the weapons. These are a bit of a pain. And then we have his gun. It's labeled as a photon cannon. I kind of like it. I mean, we got a nice trigger area in there and a trigger guard on the front. So pretty nicely detailed. The only thing is that it's in that god-awful brown color. Turn it to the light a little bit more and you can see it's in the same color. Both of his weapons are in the same color he is, so there's no mistaking where this weapon goes. And as you can see here, held against my fingers, it's also rather small of a gun compared to some of the others that were available. So, something to keep in mind, folks, while you're looking for a loose version of the toy. Now, moving right along, we'll scoot this up a little bit so we can get a little more of a look at Chop Shop here, as we will take a look now at his instruction manual. And this was done in the new style that they were doing in 1985, whereas they went with just the solid black and white, and they would put red or purple for the faction. He's a Decepticon, so he is naturally purple. And they even make sure you know he's part of the Insecticons by labeling him down here as Evil Insecticon. Let's get these opened up, and let's take a look. This page that has all of his accessories and such. And then we go into the slow detailing of how to transform him. And here we go. Arm him up with his weaponry. And possibly the fun part, putting on all those stickers. He had quite a number of stickers on him for a deluxe figure. Then we get here, advertising the rub sign, which as you can see is right there on the right leg. Clip and save your robot points, especially since you saw last week. Big value on them robot points. And, of course, how to read the tech specs. Starting to sound like a broken record here, folks. Alright, next, speaking of tech specs, we will bring them up. It's done in purple to show he's a Decepticon. It's got a nice picture of him that would have been on the front of the box. It lists him as an Insecticon, but it's done in purple so you know he's a Decepticon. And gives his name as Chop Shop. And obviously he gets his name from an illegal place that often takes stolen cars and chops them up to sell their parts. His function is listed as thief, and his motto is, "I take no prisoners, just spare parts." Sneakiest of the Insecticons. If it's not bolted to the floor, it's not safe from his greedy grasp. No challenge is too great. The more difficult something is to steal, the more he wants to steal it. As Insect flies 30 miles per hour with 2 small jets on his back. Pincer-like antenna can slice through 2-inch thick steel. Has twin pinpoint lasers on mouth, can carry 30 tons. As Robot has photon cannon. Notice they don't mention the spear on there, despite the fact that right there in the picture he is clearly holding it. Somebody goofed at Hasbro again. Let's lay the decoder here onto the grid and we'll take a look at his stats. It gives his strength as 7, his intelligence is 8, his speed is 4, his endurance is 5, his rank is 6, his courage is 7, his firepower is 6, and his rank is a whopping 10. I mean, his skill is a whopping 10, so he is, almost like Wolverine, the best at what he does. But given on his other stats, he's not too shabby on a few of the other things that would be essential for a thief. He's got some decent strength and plenty of brains. However, his speed and endurance means he'd better plan things very well. Because he's not going to last too long if he's being chased. Now we get down to my thoughts. What do I think of him? I find Chop Shop to be an interesting character. The More Than Meets the Eye guides further develop him by saying that when he's not out stealing other things, he likes to steal the personal belongings of his fellow Decepticons who have the misfortune of being stationed with him. So he will end up taking their things and even occasionally taking his own things so that it's not as obvious that he's the one doing all the stealing. Although some of them are starting to catch on, especially when he gets caught later on holding somebody else's gun or using their energy restorer or whatever, and has to come up with a quick excuse on the fly as to why he has it. I also tend to think of him that, in some cases, due to his skill at being a thief, he might also be a scrounger for the Decepticons. In the way that actors Tony Curtis and James Garner were in Operation Petticoat and The Great Escape, respectively, in the fact that they got good enough that they could improvise, they were able to improvise whatever they would need, or steal other things to help lead to getting what was essentially needed by the rest of the cast in the movies. So that would have led to probably some interesting things, as Chop Shop might have ended up having to steal things from humans to keep the Decepticon base running smoothly. I don't know how well many of the pipes in our house would be rated for flowing energon tubes throughout a Decepticon fortification, but you kind of get the idea. As a toy, Chop Shop fills a small niche that the Decepticon army kind of needs. I mean, a thief isn't exactly an essential component for an army, so he kind of loses out on that, but the fact that he's unique in being the only one qualified and he's the best at it kind of makes up for it a little bit. The toy itself is a little bit of a disappointment when you consider the lack of arm articulation at the very least. The insect mode, it's not too bad. I mean, it's slightly a step up from the regular Insecticons, and as far as he goes, along with the color schemes of many of the others, his is pretty more realistic. At least I'd be more willing to be believing that there is a brown stag beetle versus a bright green and orange cicada that his buddy Venom is. So at least he's got that going for it. As to put him in rankage as to what tier, he just barely qualifies to be in the top tier in my mind. I mean, I like the potential that the character has to go along with the way the toy is. The toy just barely earns it due to the poor articulation and the rather small accessories. But when you factor in how well his alternate mode looks, and he does make back the articulation with the many segmented legs that the insect mode has, so I think he's somewhat worthy of the top tier, but only just barely at it, folks. And that concludes my review of the Generation 1 Decepticon Thief Chop Shop. If you liked the video, please thumbs up it here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already. Please like this video and share your thoughts down in the comments below. This is Sparkster1701 saying I need to steal my DVDs back from this crazy twerp, and I'll catch y'all later.